He rejected me. Now, his older brother wants me. I knew it was a mistake the moment his name left my lips. Kieran, I like you. I spilled at him without thinking much more. I've been waiting for this moment, but I wanted to be more cautious instead of that. I liked him since elementary school, and now he was in his last year. If I didn't take that chance, I didn't know when I'd have another opportunity. He stood frozen for around half a second, his football jersey damp, expression unreadable. Then he scoffed, smirking slowly. You? Seriously? He said with a chuckle. That's when I realized we weren't alone. Laughter filled the room, and it wasn't just his. It rippled through the crowd, soft snickers, sharp whispers, the kind of cruel amusement that made my stomach plummet. "Oh shit, did that just happen?" someone said. "Poor guy, that's brutal," another one pointed. "Come on, Kai, really?" Kieran's voice pulled me back, his tone dripping with disbelief. "What made you think I'd ever be interested?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I stood there, burning under those stares. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but none of those scenarios ended like this. Kieran didn't wait for an answer. He rolled his eyes, threw an arm over his teammate's shoulder, and went away. "Let's go, guys." He laughed loudly and carelessly. "That was funny, don't you think?" Something cracked inside me. I turned and bolted before they could see my face, before the sting in my eyes turned into something worse. The rumors had already taken a life of their own. He confessed in front of everyone, like, actually thought Kieran would say yes. He's lucky Kieran just laughed. Could have been worse. I heard he almost cried. None of it was entirely true, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. In an academy built solely for alphas and omegas, where every bond and glance carried weight, whispers didn't just spread, they ignited an inferno of consequences. This was a place where the future was decided by instincts and hierarchy, where some saw fate as law and others fought desperately against it. So, I moved through the halls like a ghost, keeping my head down, my shoulders hunched. The usual routes became war zones. I skipped lunch, lingered in empty classrooms, did everything I could to avoid running into him. Kieran acted like nothing happened, like I didn't exist, nor have I been friends with him in the shadows for a long time. He laughed with his jock friends, flirted in the hallways, flashed that same easy grin. But sometimes, just sometimes, I'd catch him looking, a flicker before it vanishes. As the afternoon went by, there was Rowan, his older brother. The rebellious boy, the long platinum blonde-haired alpha I've always avoided. Why? He was actively against our world dynamics and rejected the mating idea so badly he almost got expelled for picking a fight with a group of juniors over mating. I thought nothing of it. It was our world. You're born like that, you live like that. I wanted to settle, to love, to bond. Was I too delusional? Apparently, yes. As I was surrounded by my inner thoughts, I didn't notice he was standing beside my locker, arms crossed, watching. "Hey!" I jumped slightly, fumbling with my books. The scent of him hit me first, something grounding, steadying, sending a strange warmth curling through my chest. "Oh, hey. You okay?" His voice was low, almost hesitant. It was a simple question, but the way he asked it made something tighten inside me. I forced out a weak laugh. Yeah, totally fine." Rowan didn't buy it. His gaze on me was heavy, his eyes intense in a way that made my skin prickle. "You don't have to lie." I sighed, exhausted. But before I could say something, he spoke again. I just want to get through the day." I blinked. Not sure I heard him right. "What? Why?" Rowan never talked to me so straight before, and I felt something weird, a sensation of premonition or something I didn't know what it was. He shrugged, but there was something deliberate in the way he positioned himself. close enough that I could feel the weight of him, the quiet pull that made my breath hitch. I wouldn't want to walk alone when the whole school is picking on me. That line hit me hard. So, you're pitying me now? I asked. Not for a second, he said plainly. I looked at him, and there it was. No judgment, no pity, just quiet, steady support I wouldn't have ever expected from him. My fingers twitched at my sides, my body betraying me, aching to close the distance even though I barely knew him. Less than 3 minutes, and I was already thinking about how unexpected he was. Come on, he said again. I hesitated, but as I replayed his words, I closed my locker and went beside him. As we walked by, I noticed he was right. I wouldn't want that. So I just enjoyed his company, ignoring how fast my heart was beating the whole way. The library was empty by the time I wandered in, its usual soft murmur replaced by the quiet hum of the air vents. It was peaceful, safe, a place no one would think of looking for me. And I needed an escape. The day had dragged on, each hallway, each whisper, each side-eye glance pressing down on me like a weight. Then, I wasn't alone anymore. I didn't hear him approach, just felt it. That shift in the air, the sudden awareness prickling along my skin. I turned my head and... Rowan. Leaning against a bookshelf, arms crossed, watching me like he had all the time in the world. I swallowed nervously. What are you doing here? He wasn't the type to hang around libraries. He was the type to cut class, start fights, do whatever the hell he wanted without a second thought. Rowan didn't answer, just tilted his head slightly, blonde hair falling into his eyes. Then, slowly, he walked toward me. I forced myself to hold my ground. Didn't think books were your thing, I mentioned, still nervous about his silence. He huffed a quiet laugh. They're not. I raised an eyebrow. Don't tell me you suddenly developed a love for classical literature. Rowan snorted. Yeah, I came to brush up on my Shakespeare. Right. I crossed my arms. So what do you actually want? He tilted his head, like he was considering the question. Dunno, you looked intense. Intense? I echoed. That's a weird way to say minding my own business. Rowan smirked. Thought I'd help break the streak. I exhaled, shaking my head. You're a menace. Maybe, he said, stepping closer. But you're still talking to me. I scoffed, rolling my eyes. Yeah, well, it's hard to ignore someone who keeps invading my space, Rowan hummed. And yet, you haven't told me to leave. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out because, damn it, he was right. I huffed, turning back to the book in my hands, pretending to read. Maybe I just figured you'd get bored and wander off. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping lower. That's where you don't get me, Kai. I don't get bored that easy. Something in the way he said that made my fingers tighten on the pages. I forced myself to focus, to ignore the way his presence seemed to shift the air around me. Then, something changed. A scent. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a hint of something warm in the air. But then it thickened, curling around me like smoke, heavy and unmistakable. I stiffened, so did Rowan. His smirk vanished, his jaw clenched. And that's when I knew it was happening. See, in our world, people aren't just regular humans. We're divided into alphas and omegas, and with that comes instincts. Deep biological urges that we can't always control. The scent is a huge part of it. Every alpha and omega has a unique scent, one that can influence the people around them. It's not just about smell, it's about attraction, emotion, and sometimes overpowering urges. Right now, my omega scent was changing. I wasn't supposed to be giving off these pheromones, not here, not now. It all happens in specific situations when emotions run high, when we're vulnerable, or when we're near an alpha who triggers a reaction. Or, as the rumors from my childhood, when we're near our destined mates. And Rowan? He was an alpha, a strong one, a rebellious one, and he was reacting. Hard. His breath hitched, his fingers twitched at his sides like he was fighting something. Kai? I took a step back, but the bookshelf was there, pressing into my spine, trapping me. His pupils dilated, his breathing deepened. Everything went still. Then, suddenly, heat. Mine, his, I don't know. Rowan was in front of me, hands braced on either side of my head, caging me in. His scent crashed over me, thick and dizzying. My body betrayed me before my hand could catch up. My breath stuttered and my fingers curled into fists. Because the truth was, even though I didn't want this to happen, I was an Omega, and my instincts had already made the choice for me. Rowan? I barely got the words out before it happened. His mouth was on mine, not careful, not hesitant, raw, consuming. This wasn't just a kiss, it was something deeper, something instinctual, something we weren't supposed to act on but couldn't stop. My brain short-circuited. Rowan's hands gripped my waist, fingers digging in, holding me against him like he needed me there, like letting go wasn't an option. And the worst part? I needed it too. I sank into the kiss, responding just as desperately, my body reacting before I could think. This was what our kind was wired to do. And when I couldn't think of anything else but his scent and taste, he pushed me away. It was so sudden, I nearly stumbled forward. My breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, my lips tingling, my body still caught in the aftershock. Rowan stood there, chest heaving, looking like he wanted to punch a wall, or himself. "Forget that happened," he said, voice rough, almost angry. I didn't say a word, couldn't. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Then he turned and stormed out, leaving me standing there, with his scent still thick in the air, my head spinning and my heart slamming against my ribs. I told myself it was nothing, a mistake, a slip-up, but my body refused to listen. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. Rowan's weight pressing into me, the heat of his breath against my skin, the way his hands fit too perfectly around my waist. The kiss had been desperate, hungry, like neither of us had a choice, like something bigger had taken over us. And that was the part that scared me the most, because I wasn't supposed to feel this way. Not about him, not about anyone, but Kieran. Right? Except now, whenever I saw Kieran across the hall, laughing with his friends like I didn't exist, my stomach didn't twist the way it used to. There was no ache, no logging, just the dull sting of embarrassment, the memory of his smirk cutting deeper than any rejection ever should have. But Rowan, I always felt where he was before my eyes could find him. Better, I always smelled him. There was a shift in the air, a crackling awareness settled all over my skin. Once, I looked up from my locker just in time to see him passing by, head down, jaw tight, moving like he had somewhere to be, even though I knew he didn't. Rowan was clearly avoiding me. He hadn't spoken to me since that day, not a single word, but his body betrayed him every damn time. I caught from time to time his eyes on mine when he thought I wasn't looking, the tension on his shoulders whenever I was near, because I knew he could sense my scent as well. And the bad part? My body also responded. The next time we talked, I was in the cafeteria. I wasn't even paying attention, just reaching for a tray, lost in my own head. When my fingers brushed against someone else's, heat jolted up my arm. A spark, sudden and sharp, like an exposed wire. I sucked in a breath, startled, and my gaze snapped up. Rowan. His hand twitched, like he wanted to pull away but couldn't quite make himself do it. "Oh, I mumbled, and before I could figure out what to say, he stepped back, fingers flexing at his sides. "Sorry," he murmured. It was barely a word, just air shaped into sound, but it lingered between us anyway. I wanted to say something, wanted to ask if he was okay, if he was feeling this too. But then someone jostled me from behind, and when I looked back, he was already walking away. Later that day, in the hall, it happened again. I turned a corner too fast, and suddenly, he was right there. Close. Too close. We bumped our shoulders and the same electric jolt shot through me, my breath catching before I could stop it. Rowan froze. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he exhaled. "Sorry again." I shook my head, trying to ignore the warmth still buzzing under my skin. "No, it's fine. I wasn't looking." His lips parted like he was going to say something else, but then, whatever it was, he swallowed it down, and the moment passed. He took a step back, nodded, and walked away. I stood there for a long time, staring after him, still feeling him everywhere, like a brand I couldn't shake, like some truth I wasn't ready to name. I had barely taken 3 steps when the rain started, drenching me within seconds. The nearest shelter was a half-broken bus stop, so I rushed towards it. I wiped my face with my sleeve, shivering from the cold. Then I heard someone coming in. I barely had time to look up before Rowan appeared. He was drenched too. His platinum hair stuck to his face, and his white t-shirt clung to his lean frame, outlining muscles I didn't want to notice. "Seriously? Of all places?" he muttered, his voice clearly frustrated. I blinked at him, stunned. I wasn't exactly aiming for a meetup. Rowan didn't seem to hear me, just ran a hand through his wet hair, pushing it back from his face. He exhaled sharply, and, for a second, he almost looked like he was about to leave. But he didn't. He stayed there. Silence fell between us, the rain continuing its relentless drum on the roof, and for a moment, I almost forgot what I was doing here. I tried to ignore how close he was, how the air in the small shelter felt thicker now, heavier. That was when I noticed the scent. At first, it was faint, but then it hit me in full force, warm, deep, unmistakably alpha. My body reacted before my mind could stop it. That was the thing about scents. They weren't just some mere scents. They were powerful, instinctual, and deeply tied to the way alphas and omegas interacted. For alphas, their scent was like a presence. Dominant, commanding, impossible to ignore. For omegas like me, our scent carried something different, something softer, something meant to attract, to respond. And shit, my body was responding. My own scent shifted, curling out into the air whether I wanted it to or not. It was instinct, buried deep in biology, a reaction to the presence of an alpha so close, so strong. I gritted my teeth, trying to suppress it, but that was the thing. We couldn't. I saw the moment Rowan noticed. He tensed, his nostrils flaring as he inhaled sharply. His jaw tightened like he was biting back a reaction. "You need to control that," he muttered, his voice rough, like it hurt just to speak the words. I flinched. "I'm not doing it on purpose," I shot back, frustration bubbling up. "That's the problem," he muttered under his breath. I knew what he meant. This wasn't just about preference or choice. This was nature, raw, written to us whether we wanted it or not. We were drawn into each other, and the scent was the first piece of the puzzle. They carried emotion, desire, intent, sometimes even things we refused to admit to ourselves. Supposedly, the scent that attracts you the most is the one that matches you perfectly, but not necessarily. There were people who just liked to have casual fun with it, but I wasn't one of them, and for sure not Rowan either. So, what the hell? My pulse hammered in my ears. I could sense Rowan's presence, and his reaction, even though he was doing everything in his power to suppress it too. He then turned toward me. His silver-grey eyes looked onto mine. "This whole system, it's bullshit," he growled, the words rough. I couldn't breathe properly. Maybe it was the rain, maybe it was the way he was looking at me. Either way, it felt like everything was closing in. And, before I could stop myself, the words slipped out. "Then why do you smell like you mean otherwise?" I froze the second I said it. Regret hit me instantly, but Rowan didn't move. His eyes darkened. For a second, I thought he was going to snap at me, but instead, he stepped closer. The space between us shrank, and the air between us crackled, charged with something heavy, something neither of us knew what to do with. Then he cursed, low and guttural, his shoulders stiffening as he ripped his gaze away. He stepped back, like he couldn't stand to be near me anymore. His form disappeared into the downpour within seconds, and I just stood there, racked and breathless, his scent still wrapped around me like a ghost. Days passed since the rain, since everything had spiraled out of control, and Rowan and I had settled into a routine. It was like we'd both agreed to pretend the night had never happened, acting like everything was fine when it really wasn't. We spoke briefly when we crossed paths, words short, guarded. There were small moments where it felt like the walls between us were starting to crumble, but neither of us wanted to bring up the elephant in the room. And that's when Kieran decided to make his entrance. I was at my locker, lost in thought, when his voice cut through the air, sharp, demanding. "You've been avoiding me, Kai," Kieran said, like he hadn't been the one acting like I didn't exist for weeks. I didn't look up. I couldn't. I focused on the locker, pretending I didn't feel my heart hammering against my ribs. The last thing I needed was him, standing there, acting like nothing had ever changed. "You're not going to talk to me now?" Kieran pressed, stepping closer. I could feel him, his presence smothering me, like heat radiating off his body. He was too close for comfort. "What's the matter? You still upset about—" "I'm not in the mood, Kieran," I snapped, cutting him off before he could finish that sentence. I was not going to hear him drag up all the shit I'd worked so hard to forget. Kieran didn't step back. Instead, he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "You've been acting like I don't exist," Kieran murmured, voice sharp. "What? You think because I didn't say what you wanted to hear, you just get to erase me? Like nothing ever happened?" He brushed past me, so close I could feel the brush of his body against mine. "I thought you were different, Kai. I thought I was the one who got to see the real you. Guess I was wrong." I kept my eyes on the locker, but I could feel his words sinking in, making it impossible to breathe. It was like he knew exactly how to twist the knife, even when I wanted to forget. "What? No comeback?" Kieran's voice was still teasing, but there was something darker behind it now, like he was savoring the control he had over me. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Before I could speak, I felt the shift in the air, the presence that anchored me in place. Rowan. He stepped between us, his broad frame blocking Kieran's line of sight, pushing him back just enough to make the space between us feel like a lifeline. Kieran didn't back down immediately. He chuckled, but it was empty, hollow. He eyed Rowan, lips curling into that same smirk he wore like armor. "Since when do you even care, Rowan?" His tone casual but sharp. "You've always been the outsider. Why do you care if I'm talking to Kai?" He was testing, probing, and I could feel it. Rowan didn't flinch. He didn't even look at Kieran. His eyes never left me. I didn't want to acknowledge there was something in the way he moved, the way his shoulders tensed, that made it clear that it wasn't just about a confrontation. "He doesn't belong to you, and I'm done letting you act like you own everything," Rowan said. And what happened next just settled the deal. The air changed. Rowan's scent curled into the space. Not aggressive, not overwhelming, but unmistakably present. A silent challenge. Kieran's gaze darkened for a split second, flicking between us. He wasn't done. Not yet. "You think you can protect him?" Kieran sneered. "Save him from the bad alphas? Think you can just swoop in and play the hero? You think he cares about you like that?" Kieran's smirk faltered for a moment, trying to crack Rowan's calm. But when he couldn't, he let out a humorless laugh. "You're so damn predictable," Kieran muttered, his eyes narrowing, focusing back on me. "Wanna meet me tonight, sweetie pie? What about 8? Your room?" The tension between us crackled, thick and heavy. Every word, every taunt dug under my skin, leaving me confused, angry, guilty all at once. But Rowan didn't flinch. His scent spread, filling the air, making Kieran's presence feel like nothing. "You need to leave, Kieran." Rowan's voice was low, but it carried weight. Kieran hesitated, but then his smirk returned, full of smug certainty. You'll come back to me, Kai. You always do. His voice was softer now, almost mocking, but underneath it was something else. A reminder, a taunt wrapped in truth. Because he wasn't wrong. For months, I had been his secret, his hidden friend, his late-night mistake, the weakness he refused to name. He never wanted me in the light, never let me exist outside the stolen moments he dictated. But now that I was pulling away, now that I had someone else standing between us, he suddenly cared. Rowan's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Not this time. With that, Kieran left, still smirking at me. Rowan exhaled. He turned to me, his gaze softening. You good? I nodded, though the tightness in my chest didn't go away. Meet me a date? He asked, and my heart skipped. Don't want him near you. The mix of fear and happiness in my chest was strange, overwhelming. Yes. Rowan flashed a smile, a hint of something in it that made me ache. And as he walked away, I stood there, completely lost. I sat on the edge of my bed, the storm in my head worse than the one raging outside. Rowan's words echoed in my mind. Didn't want him near you. They tore through me, threatening to rip me apart. I needed to move, escape it. I grabbed my hoodie and rushed out. The school grounds were quiet, empty, but my feet led me to the garden. My mind? Only Rowan. I found him standing near the garden's edge, his back to me. When he finally turned, his face was unreadable, his jaw tight. Without a word, he started walking into the garden. I followed, unwilling to let him slip away. We stopped at the center, the moonlight sharp against the dark. Rowan faced me then, his breath heavy like he was carrying something too heavy to speak. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair, trying to contain the mess of emotions swirling inside me. But I couldn't. Not after everything. Not after the way he looked at me back there, like I was something fragile, something to be pitied. I clenched my fists. Are you going to say something, or are we just going to stand here? My voice was tight, sharp. When he didn't answer, something inside me snapped. What the hell's going on with you? I demanded, my frustration finally spilling over. You've been acting weird all day, and now you're... I gestured vaguely at him, at the tension in his body, at the storm brewing in his eyes. I don't get it. I don't get you. Rowan's eyes darkened, his fists clenching at his sides. You really want to know? Fine. His voice was biting. It's this. You. This storm of expectations. Everything you are and what you'll never be. His words cut deeper than I expected. You mean my Omega genes? Seriously? I laughed loudly. How could I have not thought this through yet? You're sick of it, aren't you? Sick of the way I am. I spat it out, watching his expression twist. Sick that your gross hormones respond to mine. Rowan's eyes burned. You think it's just about that? You think I hate you because of that fucking label? His voice was low, dangerous. No, Kai, I hate that it's forced on you. I hate that you're trapped by it, and I hate that I can't save you from it. I felt the tension stop us. Every word hung in the air like it was something we couldn't take back, like it was breaking us both apart. The air around us thickened with the scent of Rowan's frustration, sharp and heavy, like the tension itself was manifesting in the air. It was primal, a clear signal that everything between us was teetering on the edge, raw and unspoken. Everything in me screamed to pull away, but I couldn't. Rowan shifted uncomfortably, his body tight, and I watched as his fists clenched again, his jaw grinding. The space between us was electric now, charged with something neither of us knew how to deal with. Get back inside, Kai, he growled, like he was struggling to hold back. I didn't move, not an inch, I couldn't. You always run away when it happens, I shot back. Rowan turned his face away, eyes flashing darkly. Because I know better. His words hit me like a slap, something deeper in them than just anger, something raw and vulnerable. His body was so close, and yet there was a wall between us that neither of us could break. I could feel it. His words, his scent, his rage all pulsed through space, pushing me to the edge. I should have walked away, but I couldn't. The silence stretched thick and suffocating until I couldn't stand it anymore. My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. You think I need saving? You think you can just decide what's best for me because you're an alpha who doesn't believe in mating ideals? That means you can decide what I choose for my life or not? Or you're just hating watching it in HD, your theories crumbling beneath us? Rowan's chest heaved. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I took a step closer, feeling the heat from his body. Don't walk away. Not this time. For a moment, his eyes softened, like he wanted to reach out, like he wanted to fix this, but then it was gone, and his body tensed again. Fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Just go, Kai. Rowan's voice broke, but it was a command now, even though the edge of desperation was there. I didn't move an inch. I'm not going anywhere, I whispered. His eyes burned into mine, and I saw the battle inside him, the fight against whatever this was between us. And the more I stood there, the more I realized Rowan didn't know how to stop it either. Neither of us moved. Not yet. Not until we couldn't name what was going on. I turned the corner, my heart still hammering from the tension of the day when I saw him, Kieran. He was leaning against the lockers, a smirk tugging in the corner of his mouth. It was a look I knew too well, the kind he used when he wanted control. My gut twisted, but I didn't stop walking. I couldn't. And of course, he wasn't going to let me get away that easily. Thought you'd be smarter than this, Kieran said. So you're hanging around my brother now. I thought you were into me. Not anymore, I said, simply. Kieran's smile faltered for a second, but it was quickly replaced with that mocking, cruel expression. He pushed off the lockers and moved closer, just enough to make me feel his presence suffocating me. His hand reached out, fingers running through my hair with that too familiar light touch that had once sent a thrill through me. Now, it made my skin crawl. You really think Rowan's different? Kieran's voice dropped to a whisper, his lips barely brushing my ear as he spoke. He's just like me, you know. You're just a game to him too. My chest tightened. He wasn't going to do that again with me, make me feel small and non-important. I stood taller, though my heart was still aching from the old wound of rejection he had left behind. I wasn't that weak kid anymore who'd fallen for his false promises. I glanced up at him, and let my voice slip through clenched teeth. I'm not you, Kieran. I know better now. He snorted, but I could see the flicker of doubt. He hadn't expected me to push back, and it rattled him. We'll see about that, he said and left. I didn't let my guard down the whole day after that, and by night, I was still feeling shaken by his words. I knew I wasn't the same, but Rowan, was he really different? Or had I been so desperate for something real that I couldn't see the truth? So, when Rowan showed up at my door, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I could tell he'd heard about me and Kieran talking in the hallways. He'd probably been watching, sensing something was off. His voice cut through the air, icy and demanding. What the hell did he say to you? It wasn't just curiosity. Rowan knew his brother well enough to know he'd try to get under my skin, and he didn't like it. He was already riled up, his anger sharp, desperate to make sure Kieran's influence didn't pull me back into his control. I hesitated. That I was scared. That Kieran twisted me up inside. I knew Rowan wouldn't want to hear that. He was the type to handle things head on, so I took a deep breath and told him, He said you're toying with me just like he is. Rowan didn't speak for a long moment. He always does this, he muttered, his voice thick with anger. He only wants what he thinks belongs to him, and he thinks everything does, people included. That bastard! I watched him, my thoughts a tangled mess. Do I? I asked quietly, locking eyes with Rowan. Not anymore, he said, his voice low, almost a promise, and just like that, I knew. Kieran didn't have a hold on me anymore. Rowan was nothing like him. He wasn't just a version of the past I needed to escape from. Rowan wasn't about control, wasn't about breaking me down like Kieran had. He was something different, something that felt real. I felt it in my chest, a shift I hadn't expected. Rowan had a chance to hurt me, but he didn't, and for the first time, I believed him. It was a school gathering. Music was loud, people were laughing, but I could feel Kieran's weight on me. I had hoped he'd back off by now, but something in the way he stared told me that this was far from over. I was walking through the crowd, Rowan just a few steps behind me, when I felt a sharp pull on my wrist, the grip too tight, too forceful. "You're not walking away from me!" Kieran's voice was low and controlled, but there was something desperate in it, something raw that made my stomach twist. "Not for him!" I jerked my arm free, stepping back. His grip had made me feel small once, but not now. I wasn't that person anymore. "I was never yours to begin with," I shot back. Kieran's eyes narrowed, and I saw the flicker of something darker behind the mask. He took a step forward, but before he could say anything else, Rowan was there. Rowan didn't say a word at first. He just stood between us, tall and unwavering. There was something in the way he was holding himself, something that spoke of deep boiling anger, but not just anger. There was rage too. Rage at the twisted world Kieran represented, where power meant more than people, where the system had kept its claws in us for too long. "What's this, then?" he said, his lips curled in a sneer, but this time it wasn't directed at me. It was Rowan who bore the brunt of his venom. "You're playing the big bad alpha now, huh? You think this is about you?" Rowan's voice was a cold growl, his words dripping with disgust. "This isn't about me. This is about you. You and your pathetic, power-hungry bullshit. You think you can control everyone just because you've got a badge and a title? Just because you play by some broken rulebook?" He took a step forward, his eyes blazing. "I'm done with it. Done with you. Done with everything that lets you keep pulling strings like you're some goddamn puppet master. You don't control me, and you sure as hell don't control him." I could feel the heat of Rowan's fury radiating from him, the intensity of it settling in the space between us. Kieran took a half step back, his expression faltering, like he hadn't expected this. But Rowan wasn't done. His voice softened only a little, but there was a vulnerability in it now. "Do you know why I hate the system so much? Because of assholes like you." Kieran's eyes flared with rage, and without warning, he reached for Rowan. But Rowan was faster. He moved in front of me in a heartbeat, grabbing my arm and pulling me behind him. The sudden movement was protective, but it wasn't just that. It was defiant. Rowan was no longer the boy trapped by the rules. He was being an alpha. He was crumbling all his walls. For me. "You want him that badly, brother?" Rowan's voice low and lethal. "Then you'll have to go through me." Kieran's rage was palpable, but he didn't make another move. The look in his eyes said it all. He knew, just as much as I did, that this was no longer about dominance or territory. Rowan wasn't playing around. He was fighting for us, for me, and Kieran was powerless against that. I felt the weight of Rowan's words, and for the first time, I realized how much I had been waiting for someone to choose me, for whom I was not what I represented. I had spent so much of my life trying to fit into a mold that I didn't understand, that no one had bothered to explain. But Rowan? He saw me, beyond my genes, and I taught that to him as well. He was always so afraid of being by the system, the expectations of our caste, and fate. There, I understood why he was so against it, and that's why I was so happy we were choosing each other despite all that. I looked at Rowan, his back still turned toward Kieran, but his body radiated calm strength, like he wasn't just protecting me, but standing up for something bigger than either of us. He wasn't choosing me out of duty, he was choosing me because he loved me. I stepped forward, my heart steady now. "I'm choosing you, Rowan," I said, and I didn't hesitate. "Not because of the system, not because of pheromones, but because you know me, and for the first time, I feel like I can breathe." Rowan turned, and in his eyes I saw something break free. He wasn't just fighting for us anymore. He was letting go of the chains that had kept him bound to a world that didn't understand him, just as I was. Together, we walked away, leaving Kieran standing alone, lost in his need for control, and for the first time, I knew what freedom felt like. 7 years have passed. Rowan and I have built a life together, far from the constraints of the system. Our small apartment feels like home, a place where we can breathe without fear. We've started our own business, and each day is a step forward, both in work and in our relationship. There's a sense of peace between us, a quiet understanding. No more battles. Things are good, better than I ever imagined, and we still have a long life ahead of us. Is it harder to fight for someone or fight for yourself? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.